Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the What the Fuck America podcast, where we talk about absolutely nothing of importance. We're both functionally retarded, and we like to hear ourselves talk.
Yes.
Today we got another pedophile. We're very pedophile heavy recently, very pedophile heavy. But we have another story.
Not us. Not
Yes,
us.
we are not the pedophiles.
Yeah.
But we have stories that are very pedophile heavy recently.
Yes.
So we'll talk pretty heavily about and I'll debut a word I have created today as well.
Here we
We're gonna debut this word today. Even though there's already a word for it, but I like my word better. So we're gonna talk about the Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell trial, because Epstein is also partly on trial, even though he's dead. And let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, he most certainly didn't kill himself.
No. And we'll get into why.
Yep. So, but first, we have to talk about the man who can do no wrong, the infallible, the incredible, the
Courageous.
extraordinary, the magnificent.
The greatest hero to our democracy.
Yes, Dr. Anthony Fauci. So this guy, this incredible guy, this brilliant, brilliant man who could do no wrong, do no harm to the American people, who only wants the best for everybody, had a very recent interview with Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan, where he said, "All I want to do is save people's lives. That's what I have done for the last 50 years. Except for if you go back to our Fauci and Slip episode, part 1 and 2, you realize that this man sucks fucking wieners, and it's just about the worst."
Yep.
So, in this Face the Nation article, this Real Clear Politics, you have this beautiful man, Dr. Fauci, this man who can do no wrong, this impeccable man of character, whose moral standing is high above everyone else, who's done no wrong ever. Do we want to read the whole thing? It doesn't appear to be too long. Yeah, I'm just gonna read the whole thing. Actually, let's do some role play. I'll be the girl, you can be Dr. Fauci. How's that sound?
Sure.
So I am Margaret Brennan.
I'm just going to say this because I'm annoyed. He is a fucking retard.
Yes.
Continue.
All right. So I will play the part of Margaret, and Matt will be the illustrious Dr. Fauci.
I'll do my best.
All right. Two Washington Post reporters said that back in July of 2020, you had been speaking to your wife about resigning.
I never spoke to my wife ever about resigning.
He's just so pretentious and pompous.
He's such an ass. They got that wrong. I never even considered for a moment of resigning.
Never considered it for a moment?
Not even for a second.
Dr. Birx told us that she thought about it almost daily. Ultimately didn't, but...
Dr. Birx is, and Tony Fauci is Tony Fauci.
Why do you feel so strongly about that? About staying on the job when you you were personally, not just rhetorically threatened, your security, your safety, your family. How do you deal with that?
I dealt with it by focusing on what my job is from the time that I went into medicine to right now. Where I am at my age, my job has been totally focused on doing what I can with the talents and influence I had to make scientific advances to protect the health of the American public So nobody who spins lies and threatens and all that theater that goes on with some of the investigations and the congressional committees and the Rand Pauls and all the other nonsense, that noise. Margaret, that's noise. I know what my job is.
Senator Cruz told us Attorney General, or told the Attorney General, you should be prosecuted.
Oh, yeah, I have to laugh at that. I should be prosecuted? What happened on January 6th, Senator?
Do you think that this is about making you a scapegoat to deflect
Of course.
for President Trump?
Of course. You have to be asleep not to figure that one out.
Well, there are a lot of Republican senators taking aim at this. I mean,
That's okay. I'm just going to do my job and I'm going to be saving lives, and they're not, and they're going to be lying.
it seems it just seems another layer of danger to play politics around matters of life and death.
Right, exactly, exactly. And to me, that's unbelievably bad because because all I want to do is save people's lives. That's what I have done for the last 50 years, 40 of which was 37 of which was leading the institute. Let me just say something. I just read that word for fucking word, okay? So, he's a fucking crackpot, sorry. When I see people who scattered around misinformation and lies that can actually endanger the lives of people, but also is very easy to pick out an individual and make them a target because that's what people can focus on. But you're talking about systems. You're talking about the CDC. You're talking about the FDA. You're talking about science in general. Okay. Anybody who's looking at this carefully realizes that there's a distinct anti-science flavor to this. So if they get up and criticize science, nobody's going to know what they're talking about. But if they get up and really aim their bullets at Tony Fauci, well, people could recognize there's a person there. There's a face, there's a voice you can recognize. You see him on television, so you can easily criticize, but they're really criticizing science. I represent science. That's dangerous. To me, that's more dangerous than the slings and arrows get thrown at me. I'm not going to be around here forever, but science is going to be here forever. And if you damage science, you are doing something very detrimental to society long after I leave. And that's what I worry about. Okay. 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 Here's another, what's the other word? Narcissist. Because he literally, right. So, do you think that this is making you a scapegoat to deflect? What was President Trump?
What was he?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on who you ask.
He was a scapegoat to deflect all of the bullshit that and all of these fucking assholes that he was calling out in the media.
Yep.
Come on, man. They're fucking all playing the same stupid game. Anyway, continue.
Also, that let's to speak of deflection.
I tried to do his voice, but man, I got to tell you, it was in my brain. That's why. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, I was just like, I can't read like this. It's horrible.
So to speak of deflection, when Senator Cruz told the Attorney General you should be prosecuted, Tony Fauci responded with a deflection. Yeah,
Yes.
I have to laugh at that. I should be prosecuted? Question mark. What happened on
Yeah.
January 6th, Senator? That
Yeah.
is a
Is a
classic
deflection.
deflection.
Yeah. Totally.
Not to mention, I just want to read. Just want to read this part. So if they get up and criticize science, nobody's going to know what they're talking about. But if they get up and really aim their bullets at Tony Fauci, so if they aim if they aim their slings and arrows at Tony
Yes.
Fauci,
Yes.
well, people can recognize there's a person there. There's a face, there's a voice you can recognize. You see him on television. So it's easy to criticize. but they're really criticizing science because I represent science. That's dangerous. To then follow up with, to me, that's more dangerous than the slings and arrows that get thrown at me. But if they're throwing slings and arrows at you and or bullets, they're criticizing science. So they're, according to you, you giant fucking narcissistic twat, they're both the same thing. Criticizing you and criticizing science are the exact same thing.
I'm just gonna make just a small comment. He, in my eyes, should have some sort of prosecution because he was the one that our president went to for advice on what to do, right?
Yeah.
Because that is what he said it, his fucking job,
Yep.
right? And he was wrong. He was definitely wrong. It helped cause a lot of fucking issues for a lot of fucking people. Now, a lot of people could swing for this, right?
Yep.
Because if it was Donald Trump making all those decisions and his
Let's
family making all those decisions, he would have been freaking
let's
done
let's do
immediately.
the I hate to do the whataboutisms. You know, the whataboutisms are usually the worst things to do in politics. Um, if Donald Trump did everything that Joe Biden was doing, so if Donald Trump forced vaccine mandates on businesses of 100 people or more, if Donald Trump forced vaccine mandates in order to go out and shop and into public, if Donald Trump forced masks, 100, what was it, 100-day mask mandate for all
Yep.
federal employees,
Yep.
he would be rightly so called out in the media as a tyrant, a dictator, uh, piece of shit, and they would probably openly call for his head.
Yep.
They would probably openly call for his head on CNN, MSNBC, all the various times we have seen that happen before. So,
And because it's not Donald Trump and it's Joe Biden, it's we're the terrorists for not wanting to obey this and believe in our rights as,
yep.
free people of the Americas.
And the interesting thing too, and the media totally never picked up this story because it doesn't swing in their narrative, is Donald Trump was at a rally in, I want to say, Georgia, and he was talking about the vaccine. And all of his quote unquote cult members, because that's what they call it, is Cult 45, because he was the
Yeah.
45th president.
Yeah.
So all his cult members, all his cult followers started to boo him. And he said, no, no, I get it. I respect your freedoms. I respect your freedoms. But I think it's a good thing I got the shot. I think you all should too. But I respect your freedoms.
Yeah.
When was the last time you guys heard a cult member boo their great leader, dictator? Fucking stupid
Never.
ass people.
Never.
But
Because
so
the
that's
cult
just a
leader
little,
is infallible, like God.
yep. That's just a quick little story on the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Anthony Fauci.
That fucking Muppet.
And you know, one thing too that made me, it was Galileo who posited that the earth was round, right?
I'll look it up.
And then I'm pretty sure he was put on house arrest for like 89 years because they thought he was a fucking demon. I'm almost positive that's my history is not my strong suit.
Yeah, I mean, he was like the guy. He studied velocity and gravity.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Because
He was where is it? I could have swore I just read the word heretic somewhere. Oh, sorry. Go
I'm
ahead.
almost positive it was Galileo.
Um, yeah, he was under he was he did Let's see. Galileo defended his views in Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems in 1632, which appeared to attack Pope Urban VIII, um, and thus alienated both the Pope and the Jesuits, who had both supported Galileo up until this point. He was tried by the Inquisition. Is that the Spanish? Oh, found vehemently suspect of heresy, and forced to recant. He spent the rest of his life under house arrest. During this time, he wrote two new sciences, 1638, primarily concerning kinetics and the strength of materials, summarizing the work done by blah, 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 around 40 years earlier. But yeah, the Earth rotating the sun daily.
Yes, it was the
Yeah,
Earth is
it was
not the
met with
center.
opposition. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. He called it was the Copernican heliocentrism. Earth rotating daily and revolving around the sun. That was his theory or whatever, and the Catholic Church went fucking crazy over it.
Yeah,
And
so
yeah,
science is a very
yeah,
fickle thing because back in the
yeah,
1630s, we apparently
yeah,
thought that the Earth was the center of the universe, which
yes,
we now know is not true.
no,
And we also, and this is that kind of goes back to that misinformation through mass information thing. Right now, you can find any data on COVID to suggest any theory you want to. I mean, it's so who's to tell what's really true, what's really not? Maybe Dr. Fauci is absolutely correct in everything he's saying, and we're just the fucking idiots that don't believe him. Or a more plausible theory: the man who calls himself science is probably the fucking idiot. But that's neither here nor there, I guess.
yeah,
So, shall we move on to the Ghislaine Maxwell?
sure.
All right.
What a friggin'
Shit
Oh, is
show
that
this
where
will
we
be.
are? Oh, we didn't do Mr. Stein.
Mr. Stein?
Mr. Epstein.
Yeah. Well, that's what we'll talk about Epstein to then get into the Maxwell.
Oh, okay. Let's do it.
Yeah. So,
I'm stuck on Galileo now. I'm upset. Anyway, go
yeah,
for it.
how dare he have to spend the rest of his life on house arrest?
Right? What the fuck, man?
Um, so we have this first story: what we do and do not know about Jeffrey Epstein. So, financier Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in July 2019, on charges of sex trafficking and conspiracy to engage in sex trafficking. He was denied bail ahead of his trial. Uh, Epstein, and I'm going to correct this news article because, oh, sorry about that. I'm going to correct this news article. Oh, no, I'm not going to. Let me rephrase. I'm going to read what this article says. Epstein died while in jail, and his death was officially ruled a suicide by the New York City medical examiner. Epstein, a convicted sex offender who previously served 13 months in a Palm Beach County jail, had a high profile social circle. His former associates included Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and Queen Elizabeth's son, Prince Andrew. In July 2020, his ex girlfriend and longtime associate, Ghislaine Maxwell. So apparently her name is pronounced Ghislaine, because
Yes.
apparently some French chick in Canada, or some French chicks in Canada are actually named that. And that's apparently it's Ghislaine or whatever the fuck I just said.
It's Ghislaine. When you watch anything about her, they say her name right now. So
Gotcha.
it is. It's Ghislaine.
But I'm going to continue to call her Ghislaine
Yes.
because of the implied sex stuff. Uh, so Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested on charges relating to Epstein's sex trafficking operation. So let's talk a little bit about who this fuckface was. Epstein started his career in New York City as a math teacher at the elite Dalton School, but in the 1970s, he went to work at an investment bank, Bear Stearns before founding his own firm, J. Epstein and Co., in 1982. According to Vox, he specifically marketed his services to those whose assets were worth more than $1 billion, and operated his company out of the U.S. Virgin Islands for tax reasons. While Epstein appeared to be wealthy, living in a massive townhouse, giving large sums of money to a wide variety of causes and institutions, the source of his money is obscure. He had been widely called a billionaire by Forbes, but Forbes disputes that claim, saying that he was more likely worth a fraction of that. And when Epstein died, he was worth about $500 million, according to a will signed just 2 days before his death. Interesting, a will signed 2 days before his death.
I wonder where that money went.
Yeah, that's interesting. Um, in 2008, Epstein pled guilty to a felony charge of solicitation of prostitution involving a minor, was sentenced to 18 months in prison. He served 13 and was granted work release, which allowed him to commute to an office outside his jail 6 days a week. And he's also a registered sex offender. So that's pretty much who Epstein was in a nutshell. We can talk about, let's see, do we want to do any of those? Oh, what's this? Nah, we won't talk too much about those. So here is a story about his first conviction, I believe. I'm pretty sure this is about the first conviction, unless I pulled up the wrong article.
It's the next one in line.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll read it and see what happens. Maybe it is the wrong one. Hedge fund mogul and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, who went free this week, lived in a depraved world of thrice daily massages, pornography artwork, and hush money. That's only now being revealed. How the fuck do you say that name?
Conchita Sarnoff.
That's an interesting name. Followed up on her investigation of the legal wranglings that saved him from a long prison term and reports on sordid deals in her two-part expose. That is okay. Interesting. All right. So, Palm Beach police chief objects to Epstein's special treatment and gave the Daily Beast an exclusive look at his 9-hour deposition and investigation. Earlier versions of the U.S. attorney charges included a sealed 53-page indictment, could have landed Epstein 20 years in prison. Victims allege that Epstein molested underage girls from South America, Europe, and the former Soviet republics, including 3 12-year-old girls brought from France as a birthday gift. The victims also allege trips out of state and abroad on Epstein's private jet, which would be evidence of sex trafficking, a much more serious federal crime than the state's charges against Epstein. Epstein's attorney investigated members of Palm Beach Police Department, while other ordered private investigators to follow and intimidate the victims' families. One even posed as a police officer. Then Attorney General Alberto Gonzalez told the Daily Beast that he would have instructed the Justice Department to pursue justice without making a political mess. And then do you want to take over from there?
Film director Roman Polanski is not the only convicted pedophile to walk free this month and return to life of privilege. On Wednesday, hedge fund manager Jeffrey Epstein completes his 1-year house arrest in Palm Beach, which has been even less arduous than Polanski's time at a Swiss ski chalet. During Epstein's term of house arrest, in quotes, He made several trips each month to his New York home and his private Caribbean island. In the earlier stage of his sentence for solicitation or soliciting prostitution with a minor, 13 months in a Palm Beach stockade, he was allowed out to his office each day. Meanwhile, Epstein has settled more than a dozen lawsuits brought by the underage girls who were recruited to perform massages, quoted, at his Palm Beach mansion. 7 victims reached a last minute deal last week, days before a scheduled trial. Each received well over $1 million, an amount that will hardly dent Epstein's $2 billion net worth. Um, with that, the known victims of Epstein's sexual compulsion have been officially silenced, and the case against him is closed. Unless new ones come forward, according to banking sources, he has been moving assets out of the U.S. and may well follow Polanski into a luxurious exile. But the question remains, did Epstein's wealth and social connections, former President Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, and former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers were just a few of the prominent passengers on his private jets, allow him to receive only a slap on the wrist for crimes that carry a mandatory 20-year sentence? Basically, because that was I read that so confusing because I didn't understand it. It was a question. uh was he able to was he able, with his limitless assets and heavy hitting lawyers, Alan Dershowitz and Gerald Lefcourt, Roy Black, Kenneth Starr, weird, Guy Lewis, and Martin Weinberger, among them, to escape equal justice. Michael Reiter, say that.
Sounds about right. Yep.
The former Palm Beach police chief certainly thinks so. He gave Daily Beast exclusive access to the transcript of his 9-hour deposition for the victims' civil lawsuits, in which he explained how the case against Epstein was minimized by the state attorney's office, then bargained down by the U.S. Department of Justice, all in an atmosphere of hardball legal tactics and social pressures became so intense that Reiter became estranged from several colleagues. At the time, Reiter, who retired in 2009 and now runs his own security firm, objected both to Epstein's plea agreement and to the flexible terms of his incarceration in the county jail rather than state prison. Asked during the deposition whether he thought Epstein received special treatment, he answered yes.
It's a
Um,
relatively simple
yeah,
answer right there. Just yes.
yes, yes.
Um,
Yeah, you want me to keep going?
I can take over.
Go for it.
In March 2005, Ritter's department, acting on the complaint from the Florida parents of a 14-year-old girl, launched an investigation that would eventually uncover a pattern of predatory behavior stretching back years and spanning several continents, knowingly enabled by Epstein's associate and employees 2 or 3 days a time, 2 or 3 times a day. Whenever Epstein was in Palm Beach, a teenage girl would be brought to his mansion on El Brillo Way. The younger the better, he instructed Haley Robson, a local teenager who was paid to bring other girls to the house and who declared on police tape that she was like a
Heidi Fleiss.
all right, the infamous California maiden. Never heard of that name before in my life.
Yeah, in the like 80s or 90s, whenever it was, she was like a high dollar. She basically was a madam. She had a fucking like whole bunch of chicks, and it was all high dollar prostitution shit.
Interesting.
Yeah, and she got
Um,
busted for it.
Advised that she would be giving a massage, the girls was then pressured to remove her clothes, submit to fondling, and a large vibrator. Interesting. Sometimes
Yikes.
lured into more invasive sexual contact. Each girl was paid $200 or more, depending on how far things went, by manager Alfredo Rodriguez, who was instructed to always have $2,000 cash on hand. That's pretty well fucked.
Yep.
Um, the Palm Beach Police Department identified 17 local girls who had contact with Epstein before the age of consent. The youngest was 14, and many were younger than 16. So they were 14, most
14 or
likely.
15. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was just one of Epstein's many homes around the world. He also owned property in New York, Santa Fe, Paris, London, and the Caribbean. Subsequent investigations by the FBI, reaching as far back as 2001, identified roughly 40 victims, not counting Nadia
Marcinkova? I don't know.
that sounds about right,
Yeah.
whom Epstein referred to as his Yugoslavian sex slave, because he had imported her from the Balkans at age 14, now 24. Mara Sinkova, I'll just say
Marcinkova.
that,
Yeah.
became a member of the household and is alleged to have participated in sexual contact with underage girls. Man, this is just fucked. Um, Epstein quickly got
This
wind.
is the first. This is the first time he got busted.
Yep, and he only spent like one day. He spent probably like 50 because it was 6 days a week he could leave prison
Yeah.
and go to work, and then
Yeah.
one day he had to come back. So he spent 52 days in jail
Yeah.
for this, basically.
Yeah.
Um, oh no, I lost my spot.
Epstein quickly got wind of the investigation.
Epstein quickly got wind of the investigation, and progress on the case got messy very quickly. He hired a squad of lawyers and private investigators and dispatched influential friends, which we have a unredacted version of his little black book, which we will
Post
read
in the
through every
notes,
single name
maybe.
in. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, there's a
Because there's,
gajillion people in
yeah,
there.
it's 95 pages of names,
Yeah.
and there's
It's
a shit
every
ton.
rich person who ever lived.
Yep. Um. So influential friends to pressure the police into backing off. Instead, local detectives pressed on and brought the matter to the attention of the FBI. The detectives asked their federal colleagues whether the fact that some victims appeared to have asked their federal colleagues whether I just fucked that
Said
up.
that twice.
Yep.
Yeah.
The detectives asked their federal colleagues whether the fact that some of the victims appeared to have traveled out of state on Epstein's plane, plus the use of interstate phone services to arrange. Um, why can't I say that word?
Assassinations.
What the I've assassinations?
That's what that word is.
Is that an actual word or is that a typo? Or am I
I
just a
think that's a
fucking
typo
moron?
because it seems like arrange ass rapings or something
Yeah.
is what it should.
Um.
Yeah.
Okay. Apparently, it is a real word. An appointment to meet in secret.
Yeah, there you go. To arrange assassinations might be violations of federal 2000 Trafficking Victims Protection Act. Sorry.
Fucking assassinations. What the fuck?
Which carries a minimum sentence of 20 years, and that would be for each count. So every single one of those hookers that he brought on, and no offense to the children that he raped, but I mean, come on now. He thought of you as hookers.
Yep.
So they, man, could you imagine that? This is insane that he was even let go.
Yep.
He must have had some really good friends
Yeah.
that
I'm
were
just still
down with
stunned
his
at the word
perversion.
assassinations.
Yeah. I mean, God.
Well, you learn something new every day.
Yeah.
So when State Attorney Barry Krischer, who also runs Florida's Crime Against Children's unit, uh, proved reluctant to mount a vigorous word. Pick the right words here, guys.
Yeah.
Reluctant to mount a vigorous. Come on now, we're talking
Yeah.
about children being mounted
Yeah.
vigorously.
Yeah.
Um, proved reluctant to mount a vigorous prosecution of Epstein, saying the local victims were not credible witnesses. Chief Ryder, whatever the fuck his name is again, wrote the attorney a letter complaining of the state's highly unusual conduct and asking him to remove himself from the case. He did not, and the evidence his office presented to the state grand jury produced only a single count of soliciting prostitution.
Hmm.
Kirscher has since retired and would not comment for this article. So,
Silenced. Money talks, baby. And that's
and
probably
this,
why he's stayed free.
yep. And this will get into the law, and this is a saying that's been said for a very long time. The law is like a spider web. The flies get caught and the bees go free.
Mm.
So your higher ups, we'll take Hillary Clinton, for example, which is a story we'll get into a little bit later on. Hillary Clinton with her email scandal. Um, the reproduction of classified documents is a felony and can be prosecuted for, even if you take a picture of your desk and a sliver of a paper that has the words classified on it shows up in that picture, you can go to prison for a very long time if that happens. And there have
Yes.
been people that have been prosecuted for things that small. Hillary Clinton, on the other hand, was not. Um, at the behest of the FBI, no less, and we'll get into that a little later.
Because they all probably sucked her dick.
Yep. Um, so, and then lost my spot again. The details, I believe, that eventually emerged. Oh, no, that's not. Nope, that is right. The
That's right.
details that eventually emerged were often shocking and occasionally bizarre. For Epstein's birthday one year, according to allegations in a civil suit, he was presented with three 12-year-old girls from France who were molested, then flown back to Europe the next day. That's just so kind of him
Yeah.
to fly them back to Europe. So kind.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, these same civil complainants allege the young girls from South America, Europe, and the former Soviet republics, few of whom spoke English, were recruited for Epstein's sexual pleasure. According to a former bookkeeper, a number of girls who worked for MC2, the modeling agency owned by Jean-Luc Brunel, a longtime acquaintance and frequent guest of Epstein's, Brunel received $1 million from the billionaires around the time he started the agency. The non-prosecution agreement executed between Epstein and the Department of Justice states that Epstein and four members of his staff were investigated for knowingly in affecting interstate and foreign commerce, recruiting, enticing, and obtaining by any means a person, knowing that person has not yet obtained the age of 18 years and would be caused to engage in commercial sex act. That is child sex trafficking. Yet the agreement allowed Epstein to plead guilty to only two lower level state crimes: soliciting prosecution and soliciting a minor child for prostitution.
Prostitution. Say it again. Prostitution.
Yep. This is
What a
just fucked.
disgusting. He's
Yep.
just a disgusting. I gotta say, if he's dead, good. If not, fuck him. Someone should kill him. Anyway, also, and this is the first time. When was this article made?
This article was from 2019.
Oh yeah, because all the shit was coming
Oh
out.
no, just kidding. It was published
Yeah,
2010. It was
yeah,
updated 2019.
Yeah. So this dude was able to basically get his affairs in order for 10 years.
and
What a piece of
continue to
shit.
fucking diddle children.
Yeah. Just
Um,
like who? Just like who?
I
Rosenbaum.
was gonna say there's so many pedophiles recently. I don't know which one we're talking about.
I'm just saying.
Um, so
We're at Aldo.
are we? So you
Yeah.
want to take over here?
Oh, sure. Although the police investigation was officially closed, Chief Ryder tried to stay abreast of the federal case against Epstein. He was particularly concerned that Epstein be registered as a sex offender, which was part of the final deal, and that a fund be set up to compensate his victims, which was not. Although Epstein agreed to bankroll their civil lawsuits, Dershowitz says Epstein's agreement to pay attorney fees for the victims and agree to civil damage claims without admitting guilt amounted to extortion under threat of criminal prosecution. Which, so what? He's a fucking idiot. He don't want to be incriminated. You don't want to admit guilt. If you don't want to admit guilt, that means you want to remain not guilty, right?
Yep.
So why pay for anything for these motherfuckers? Why not just take them to fucking court and crush them in the court if you're so fucking innocent?
Yep.
But
If
he
you're so
knew.
innocent, you fucking
But he
ass
knew
man.
he wasn't innocent. He knew he couldn't do that, right? There you
Yep.
go. Anyway, but exactly which crimes did the Department of Justice threaten to prosecute? The Daily Beast has learned that there were several earlier versions of the U.S. Attorney's charges, including a 53-page indictment that he had been convicted. Oh, had he been convicted, could have landed Epstein in prison for 20 years. Brad Edwards, attorney for 7 of the victims, confirms the existence of an earlier draft of the non prosecution agreement, officially under seal, in which it appears that Epstein committed at some point to a 10-year federal sentence. But in the end, Epstein's legal team refused that deal and threatened to proceed to trial. And that's where the question of whether the case is winnable before a jury again came into play. According to a source in the U.S. Attorney's Office, which shared the state attorney's view that the prosecution was far from a slam dunk. Now, for one, it was clear from the start that Epstein would spare no legal expense and that his team of veteran lawyers, whose cases range from O.J. Simpson to the investigation of Bill Clinton's relationship with an intern, would play rough. Would play rough, yeah. When the Palm Beach police started to identify victims, according to Detective Joe Riccari's report, Dershowitz began sending the detective Facebook and MySpace posts to demonstrate that some of these girls were no angels. Ryder's deposition also states that he heard from local private investigators that Dershowitz had launched background checks on both the police chief and Riccari. Dershowitz denies all of that. According to Ryder, both he and Riccari also became aware that they were under surveillance for several months without knowing who ordered it. And the Florida victims began to complain that they and family members were being followed and intimidated by private investigators who were then linked to local attorneys in Epstein's employ. In one report instance, the private investigator claimed to be a police officer, and Ryder considered filing witness tampering charges. Um, the fact that Dershowitz sent Facebook and MySpace posts to demonstrate that these girls were no angels has nothing to do with it, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter what these girls are doing online.
Say it's the same exact reason
This
for
dude
why
knew how old they were. Like they know this is a thing. This is a
yep.
recurring thing.
The same reason Joseph Rosenbaum's um
Dead?
the fact
I'm
yes.
sorry.
Um
Oh yeah, because he fucked around and found out. I'm sorry.
well because so the same reason why Rosenbaum's pedophilia charges were not installed in evidence for the Rittenhouse trial is the same reason why that should also not be evidence It doesn't,
Right.
them hoeing around and banging people at the age of fucking 12 years old does not mean Epstein is in the clear to run around and bang fucking 12-year-old girls.
Not to mention the fact that if those girls were hoeing around, they're probably hoeing around with dudes their age
Or slightly older,
or
17,
slightly
18,
older. You got to
19.
figure too, they're in high school, right? 14 years old, they got to be in high school,
Yep.
right? Is that like 8th grade high school? So then they
Yeah,
start getting
eighth.
that
Yep.
way. A lot of them do, man. I mean, but anyway, no
So
excuse. He knew.
yeah. So let's go ahead and go to this Maxwell trial, because I think we have a pretty clear image that the Department of Justice is not actually the Department of Justice.
No.
She is not that fabled blindfolded lady with a sword and a scale. Um,
Well, she's blindfolded because the money outweighs the justice.
yeah, exactly.
There you
Um,
go.
so we have just a little bit of an update. Here's what you need to know. This is from the beautiful New York Times. Um, Ms. Maximo was accused of trafficking teenage girls to have sex with Jeffrey Epstein, her longtime partner. Her defense said on Monday that she was being used as a scapegoat for him. Here's what you need to know. The first witness in the Maxwell trial is one of Epstein's pilots. Defense lawyers say Maxwell is a scapegoat for Epstein, even in death. I skipped one. Maxwell exploiting young girls and serving them up to Epstein, a prosecutor said. Even in death, Jeffrey Epstein looms over Maxwell, sex trafficking trial. Uh, Issues raised by two jurors briefly delaying opening statements in the Maxwell trial. And then here are the charges that she faces. So we'll go into this a little bit and into why Ghislaine Maxwell will probably also have a 6-day a week work release program where she only spends a year in jail. And in that year, she only has to spend 1 day in said jail.
Hmm.
And yeah. So, prosecutors in the Maxwell trial have just called their first witness, Larry Vosky. Why am I so.
Vysotsky.
Yeah, Vasosky. Why am I so terrible with names?
Just sound it
Um,
out.
I can't. I'm an idiot. You should know this. Um, One of Jeffrey Epstein's longtime pilots. The government often uses the first witness to set the stage for the evidence and the testimony to come. Mr. Visosky, who worked for Epstein from 1991 to 2019, is in a position to explain to the jury where Mr. Epstein's homes were, who the financier traveled with, um, and all that
And
other
how,
fun stuff.
yeah, and how it was
Um,
arranged. Yeah.
yep. Women in a civil suit against Mr. Epstein have accused. Wow, I need to fucking slow my reading down. Let me turn this to dark mode. Maybe that's why my dumbass is having issues here.
Dark mode is key.
Yep. Settings. Oh no, I can't. It's on the Wayback Machine. Oh, all right. Fuck it.
I'll do it.
All right.
Women in civil lawsuits have accused Mr. Epstein of conspiring with associates, including his pilots, to facilitate sexual abuse and avoid law enforcement detection. Some have described being transported as minors on Epstein's private jet to his various residences. One of Mr. Epstein's planes was nicknamed the Lolita Express because he invited young women and girls, some accusers have said, to entertain guests on board. Mr. Epstein's flights have been under scrutiny for years, and the government homed in on Mr. Visosky earlier in its investigation, shortly after Mr. Epstein's arrest in July 2020. On the tarmac at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, prosecutors in Manhattan issued grand jury subpoenas to Mr. Visosky and David Rogers, another pilot. Flight logs for Mr. Epstein's planes made public through civil litigation show that the passenger list often included prominent politicians, academics, and Hollywood celebrities. A lawyer for Miss Maxwell described as the flights as a Hamptons jitney in the air. Ooh, I don't even know what a jitney is, but I
I'm
sure don't
gonna
want one.
I'm gonna look that shit up
Uh,
right now.
for Mr. Epstein's friends and associates. An assistant U.S. attorney, Laura Pomerantz, and that's how you say that, I'm pretty sure, said in her opening statement earlier on Monday that the flight logs will be part of the government's case against Ms. Maxwell. Rebecca
So
Davis O'Brien.
a jitney.
Yes.
Let's see. An unlicensed taxi cab is what a jitney is called.
A what?
A jitney is a unlicensed taxi cab. So is
Oh.
she calling it an Hamptons? So when you think of Hamptons, think of wine and dine, upper class, high society, right?
Rich folk.
Yep. So it's an unlicensed rich folk fucking party. Anyways, continue.
Hmm. A defense lawyer suggested to jurors on Monday that the sex trafficking case against Ghislaine Maxwell was a misdirect effort by prosecutors who targeted her because they had lost the chance to put the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein on trial. The lawyer, Bobby C. Sternheim, hmm, took her turn. Oh, it's a chick. The lawyer, Bobby C. Sternheim, took her turn addressing jurors after a prosecutor delivered a 35-minute opening statement that painted Miss Maxwell in harsh terms as someone who played an essential role in a decade-long scheme to entice and manipulate teenage girls who were groomed methodically, then sexually abused by Mr. Epstein. Ms. Sternheim described her client as a scapegoat for Mr. Epstein's actions. Ever since Eve was accused of tempting Adam with the apple, she said, women have been blamed for the bad behavior of men.
What a bitch.
Right? She went on to say that Mr. Epstein's death in the and this bitch just defended him, right? Like that was
Mhm.
her defending him,
Yep.
not her. Kinda. I mean, whatever. She went on to say that Mr. Epstein's death while in federal custody in Manhattan had left a gaping hole in the pursuit of justice for many people. Miss Miss Maxwell is filling that hole, Miss Sternheim added, filling that empty chair. Sternheim urged jurors to be skeptical of the accounts they would hear from four witnesses who are expected to testify that they were abused by Mr. Epstein, saying, "This case is about memory, manipulation, and money." She added that accusations from the mouths of four accusers include unreliable and suspect memories that could have been corrupted over the years or contaminated by constant media reports. Ms. Sternheim also suggested repeatedly that testimony in Miss Maxwell's trial could be connected to a desire for a big jackpot of money. At one point, Miss Sternheim likened Mr. Epstein to a 21st century James Bond, saying that his mystique had spurred curiosity and his accusers have shaken the money tree. During her
Okay.
opening statement, right? That's weird, right?
So let's jump to since all that's not all that important.
Yeah.
The rest of it I was looking. Let's
Yeah.
jump down to the charges.
Oh, okay.
It's towards the bottom, and I'll take over.
You can go for it.
So Maxwell faces 6 counts in her federal trial, which relate to the accusations that she facilitated the sexual exploitation of girls for her longtime companion, the disgraced financier and sex offender Epstein. The 6 counts center on the accounts of 4 accusers. The charges include 1 count of enticement of a minor to travel to engage in illegal sex acts, in which Miss Maxwell is accused of coercing one girl, identified as minor victim 1, in charging documents to travel from Florida to New York between 1994 to 1997 to engage in sex acts with Mr. Epstein. 1 count of transportation of a minor with intent to engage in illegal sex acts, which accuses Miss Maxwell of bringing the same girl from Florida to New York on numerous occasions. one count of sex trafficking of a minor, which charges that between 2001 and 2004, Ms. Maxwell recruited, enticed, and transported another girl identified in the charges as minor victim 4 to engage in at least one commercial sex act with Mr. Epstein, and 3 counts of conspiracy, which are related to the other counts. The conspiracy counts in the indictment are more expansive, involving all 4 accusers and homes in the United States and in London. These charges involve accusations that Miss Maxwell worked with Epstein to secure underage girls for sex acts, for example, by encouraging one to give Mr. Epstein massages in London between 1994 to 95. Miss Maxwell, who is 59, could face a lengthy prison sentence if she is convicted. Conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of minors carries a maximum 40-year sentence. The other charges have maximum penalties of 5 or 10 years. So, to me, those charges all sound relatively similar to Epstein's charges. And I'm going to make that prediction that she's probably only going to spend about a year in jail with some stupid ass work release program. It's just going to be, it's for a woman that sex trafficked. All right, let me just lay this out here. In my humble opinion, Jeffrey Epstein is the pedophile king. He was he basically had a private island, and I am making the assumption because I have no proof or evidence to claim otherwise, other than a giant flight log of people that went to this island with him. He was raping young girls with high society upper elites, and he was filming them, and he was using it as blackmail
Most
to get out of
definitely.
his 2005 charges or whatever they were. And he was also going to try to get out of his 2019-2020 charges, but people probably didn't want those things to come out about him, so they offed him. And now Ms. Maxwell is suffering the brunt of, and that's not even really the brunt of it. That's there's hardly any charges there. I mean,
Yeah.
she should be fucking hanging by a tree. Like these people are disgusting. Um, like, don't get me wrong. There are 16, 17, and 18-year-old girls nowadays that look like they're fucking 24. And if you never got an ID, you'd be going to jail for the rest of your life because you just banged a fucking 16, 17, 18-year-old girl. Like,
Yep.
I understand that. That's not what we're talking about here.
No.
This is a
Knowingly.
this is
Knowingly.
asking for 12 to 13 to 14 to 15-year-old girls
The
because
dude
the
was,
younger the better.
yeah, yeah. The younger the better. He was quoted.
So,
And this thing's been going. I mean, these people, I feel like, remember how I was talking earlier how, like, yeah, we hear stuff here and there, but it's
mhm,
not like with the Rittenhouse thing, and it's not like with the Ahmaud Arbery thing, like
yep,
with something like this, there is, and this is how you can tell that money talks, right? Because there is so much money involved in this that it's hardly on TV. You don't see this shit every day, updates,
yep,
daily updates, like you did with Rittenhouse, right?
yep.
This is a fucking blurb on the internet, dude.
Well, and this is they don't want to talk about it. They do
No
not want to
fucking
talk
way.
about this.
Well, think about it, man.
I mean,
Maxwell,
fuck, Project
like
Veritas
her family is fucking
connected.
loaded, dude. Dude.
Yep.
I don't buy for a second.
Not to
If she
mention,
ends up fucking dead by suicide, her and that fucking idiot are fucking living somewhere, man. There's no
yeah,
way. There's
not
no
not to,
way.
not to mention the mysterious death of her father. That's an interesting one as well.
Oh yeah, what was his
Um,
name? I
I
remember.
don't,
I watched the whole thing
I don't
about him.
even.
Oh yeah.
But Project Veritas came out with a leaked video of a MSNBC journalist, I want to say, talking about how, and it was a very interesting kind of a watershed moment of like, they've had this stuff for years at like, I don't want to slander the wrong, um, the wrong, news place, even though they all deserve to be fucking slandered. Um, so I think it was Amy Rohrbach, is I believe her name.
Yeah. I like
Uh,
watching some stuff she's does, but I think it's just 2020 that I watch or something. 60 minutes. I don't know what it is.
Gotcha. So leaked insider recording from ABC News reveals network executives killed bombshell story implicating Jeffrey Epstein. And this is Amy Rohrbach, and I'm just going to read her little blurbs that she talks about. So these are the things she's saying on this video. Um, I had this story for 3 years. ABC would not put it on air, says Good Morning America breaking news anchor and 2020 co anchor Amy Rohrbach.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. We had Clinton, we had everything. We had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew. I got a little concerned about why I couldn't get on. Amy Rohrbach describes she interviewed a woman who had the courage to come forward years ago about Epstein. She had pictures, she had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. Um, Rohrbach details ABC's initial response to her. Who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. That was the initial response that she received from ABC. Um, so she had this stuff for years, years and years, and she was not allowed to talk about it. She was not allowed to put that story out there. So these these people don't want this story coming out, and they're going to do everything they can to not talk about it. So let's go ahead and talk about how the fix is in, and how should I reveal? No, let's save the word for the next article.
Yes.
We'll save the new word for the next article.
Yes.
Um, so this is a glorifying story about Maxwell, who seems like she had just gotten her hair did, got a massage, went to the spa, got dicked down in the best of ways, and come out glowing like a fucking newborn baby. Um, Maxwell, 58, wearing a black turtleneck sweater and gray pants, laughed, hugged, and conversed with her attorneys in New York courtroom on Thursday. The third day of jury selection, the British socialite even turned in her seat and blew multiple kisses to her sister Isabel, who watched from the gallery. That to me doesn't sound like, something someone who's being charged with multiple sex crimes against children would be acting like. But, compare that to the Rittenhouse, how Rittenhouse acted. And then now you have Maxwell, who's blowing kisses and laughing and joking with all these fucking people. But that was just a quick little blurb that I wanted to talk about on that one. Now we get to the moment the people have all been waiting for. The newest word ever created in the English language. It's a brand new word that was just created recently by yours truly, the guy who can't sound out names and reads like he's at a fucking first grade English tutor class, even though he's a 30-year-old man. We're going to talk about how nepotistic the government is. And for those of you that want to look up that word, you can't because it isn't real. I made it up and it's a great word.
Yes.
Nepotistic. So, what I mean by that, if you want to just look up the word, what was the word? Nepotistic?
Nepotistic, yeah.
The word is nepotistic. The government is very nepotistic. But I much prefer my word, nepotistic. So nepotism, in case some of you may or may not know, is basically you giving a job and or benefit to a family member over someone else. And the reason we're talking about nepotistic / nepotism is James Comey's daughter is a lead prosecutor in Ghislaine Maxwell's child sex trafficking case. Let me say that first name again.
Yes.
James Comey.
Yes.
I feel like we've heard that name before, right?
Yes, we have.
Where if you wouldn't mind jogging my memory, where exactly is that name from again?
Pertaining to this or just in general?
Just in general, I don't remember exactly where I've heard that name before.
Didn't he bury the Clinton? Didn't he like refuse to go after Clinton for her
Oh
bullshit?
yeah.
Didn't
Okay.
didn't he also investigate Donald Trump? Didn't he also turn
Oh
basically the whole FBI against the president of the United States that was elected by the American people?
yeah. Okay. That makes see that's where I
Wasn't
remember his name from.
wasn't he also one former FBI director
That's what it was. That's what it was. Okay.
who
So,
worked on the sex crimes against Jeffrey Epstein?
oh yeah. Okay. All right. All right. All
Yeah,
right.
okay. I'm done now.
So, all right. So that's why that name sounded so familiar to me.
Yeah.
So James Comey, the guy who was the head of the FBI, who giant piece of shit, giant piece of shit. His daughter is a prosecutor in Ghislaine Maxwell's child sex trafficking case. Now, some of you may or may not be, picking up on what I'm laying down here. Um,
Could the Comey family be
Russian agents. We figured it out. They're Russian
Russian?
assets.
No, they're freaking Clinton assets. They were, dude. There's
They're
a
also Russian
movie.
assets.
I agree
Because
with
if you
you.
remember, Hillary Clinton sold 1/5 of Canada's uranium to the Russians.
Yeah, that's
And then
terrible.
all of a sudden, billions of dollars, not billions, millions of dollars rolled in mysteriously into the Clinton campaign, or the Clinton Foundation. But we won't talk about that. We don't talk about those things here.
Yeah,
We're not a conspiracy podcast. We
I
only talk
know,
about
but
facts. Kind of like
yeah,
how the Attorney General Loretta Lynch met with James Comey to discuss the reopening of Hillary Clinton's private email server.
yes,
But then you also have to bring up the fact that Bill Clinton met with Loretta Lynch on the tarmac to discuss the Hillary Clinton email scandal.
mm-hmm.
Not to mention Christopher Sine, the journalist who broke the story of Bill
Mm.
Clinton meeting with Loretta Lynch on the tarmac, somehow mysteriously died in 2016 at the age of
Oh yeah,
45.
45. Damn.
So, what we have here is Hillary Clinton had an email server that she was not legally allowed to have, which had a bunch of shit on it that she was probably hiding from the government because she's a cunt.
Hmm.
And then she was being investigated by the FBI, of which James Comey was in charge of. And then they decided not to press charges against Hillary Clinton, but then they reopened the case because of public backlash. And then Loretta Lynch, who was Barack Obama's attorney general, met with Bill Clinton, who is the husband of Hillary Clinton,
Who was
also a pedophile.
and running for president against Donald Trump
Oh,
at the
yeah.
time.
Sorry, there's just too many pedophiles to
Yeah,
keep track
they're
of.
everywhere, and they all fly on the same plane.
Yeah, the Lolita Express.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
So you have Hillary Clinton running for president, and then her husband, Bill Clinton, meeting with the attorney general, who then went and met with the head of the FBI to talk about whether or not to prosecute Hillary Clinton for her crimes against humanity / her email. His daughter is now
Mhm.
the state prosecutor, one of the lead state prosecutors
Yep.
on Jeffrey Epstein's trial.
Yep.
It's weird.
He's a fucking disgrace. Him and his whole fucking team of people, they're fucking disgraces. If you
Yep.
you got to watch this movie called The Comey Rule, okay? And this was a Hollywood hit job against Donald Trump, obviously. It made me never want to watch another movie with Jeff Daniels in it. Like I can't even watch Dumb and Dumber anymore because he plays Comey in
Yeah.
it. And it's fucking, I mean, the way they depict his family on election night when Donald Trump wins, you'd have thought that his wife was banging Hillary Clinton, that had something invested in this. I swear to God,
Yep.
dude, they made it like it was so emotional for
Bro,
their family.
it was her time.
I know. It was. I know. It was her time. It was her time. It was her time.
And
Both
then,
times she ran, she lost to men.
yep. And then we have one more little,
Because even women didn't fucking vote for her.
yep,
Sorry.
because she was just that unlikable. And then we also have Biden nominates Ghislaine Maxwell's judge, Memphis litigator, to appeals court. And it's, I at first thought when I saw this picture,
Yeah. Thought
I
it
thought
was
it
a
was a
lesbian.
dude.
Mm.
Definitely thought it was a dude. But it's definitely
A
not a
lesbian.
dude. Definitely a lesbian. So it's just more nepotism to run around, and this just
So right there, right? So I wonder if we'll see Hunter Biden's name in this little black book.
I don't know, but I just saw something very funny. So for those of you who do not know, there's a little black book of Jeffrey Epstein's, where it has all his contacts in it, and we were scrolling around, found some interesting names. I just found a really funny name.
Mm-hmm.
So in his little black book, there are names of people, first and last name, businesses, and all that stuff. But there are also randomly only one name people, like Gerard is a name.
Yeah.
And then there's like a couple others. It's Gerard with one number, one contact number. Ritz, one contact number. Blake's, one contact number. Contact number. Um, but then there was an interesting one I saw. It's right here, Matt. If you want to confirm this, if you see on top where it says some number /95, on the Epstein's Little Black Book.
The first page.
Yeah, if you go to page 63,
Oh,
if you just type 63 in that little thing, one of the names is Tramp. Tramp with one number.
page
Annabelle's.
63.
Yep.
Those are all W's.
Oh, then go down to 68. Sorry.
Oh. Well, you can't look at numbers either?
No, I
I'm just
can. It's
kidding.
just you're looking at the wrong one.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, and the page that I'm on in his Little Black Book is 68, but the page in the thingy is 63.
Oh.
But do you see it right above finance? It says Tramp.
Yes.
It even says entertainment right there.
Yeah.
There's Ricardo, number one
Annabelle's.
polo player.
Aspinall's. Yep.
Yep. But so all these, and there's various single person names all throughout his Little Black Book, which some people have kind of deemed that they're probably the victims. And there's an unredacted version, which means you can get all the numbers and all the names. And you could probably call them. And I'm not saying to call them because that's harassment, probably. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting people
Mm-hmm.
in this Little Black Book. Not not sure how to feel about. There's Senator John Kerry is in there.
Yeah. Here we go.
Let's see.
There's a lot of fucking weirdos. Courtney Love's in here. Mick Jagger. Fucking.
Yep.
Lot of different. A lot of business, like big business people.
Yep. David Rockefeller. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we will see if we might have to do a Justice is Dead part 5 because next week's episode might be a Justice is Dead part 4 in which Matt and I get into a yelling match about why we think the Ahmaud Arbery trial may or may not have been no justice or it might have been justice. So we might do that episode tomorrow. We might, or not tomorrow, but next week, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Or we might just talk about some random shit. No one knows what we're
Yeah.
going to do.
We don't know. You know why? Because it keeps it interesting.
That it does.
Not to mention, we do have some pretty good stuff for the Arbery thing. That
Yes.
I thought that was pretty good. I think it's good because you have some good points.
That's if they're founded. That's if I can actually substantiate the claims I'm making.
Right. But then again, we'll only know as much as is out there, right?
Yep.
So, you know.
So and Matt and I think we both come to the same conclusion on the second or the random guy that was there filming.
Yeah.
I think we both don't think he should be spending life in prison. I think that's a travesty of justice.
Right.
But yeah, that's what we'll do. I'll spend the next week. I'll do my research. I'll try and figure out all my claims I can actually substantiate, and then we're gonna go at it. We're gonna fucking go at it.
Yeah. And keep your eyes peeled. I may do an episode about Galileo because this motherfucker is fucking interesting,
He's
man.
interesting,
And if you
yeah.
don't know anything about Galileo, dude, this dude went up against the goddamn Pope. And I don't know if you know this, but in the what's 1600s? Is that the 17th century?
Yep.
Back then, dude, it was the church. Like that was it.
Maybe that's
right?
not. Maybe that's the
15th,
15th.
15th century. But still,
One
back
of the
then,
two.
dude. I mean, these people, I mean, it was the church or
nothing.
Fuck you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was it. So, as you can tell, he lived the rest. I mean, he spent his whole fucking life under house arrest, for God's sake.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but yeah.
So, let's hope we don't have Justice is Dead part 4. and 5. Hopefully, Ghislaine Maxwell, justice actually gets served. But as always, remember, ladies and gentlemen,
What is justice though for her?
mass
Should she
ritual suicide of every single person that ever has been a pedophile.
now? I agree with you, but one more thing before you sign off here. Should she? Now, this is a question for everybody to think about. Should she pay for his crimes too? And I feel like that's what this case is going to be about. It should be about what she did, but I feel like she's going to be convicted on what he did.
I don't think.
Only because we don't really know, right? Like they're telling us what he's done. They're not really telling us a lot about what
Well,
she's doing.
they told us what she was charged for, and a
Right,
lot of
right.
it was conspiracy to commit sex trafficking and sex trafficking, which is, I
Yeah.
think, the bulk of what she was responsible for was getting the girls for
Oh.
him and all the other pedophiles of the world
Mhm.
to bang.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think she is being charged for her crimes. Um, but it'll be interesting. And the big thing is she is innocent until proven guilty. And actually, one of the very annoying things that sucks about being a fairly principled person, I waffle between having principles and being a absolute authoritarian dictator that wants to kill everyone. I waffle between those two states in my life.
Mm.
When I was watching the Rittenhouse trial, Nick Rekieta made a very valuable point. And it's one of those Blackstone's formulations. It's better 10 guilty men go free than one innocent suffer.
Mm.
Um, take Rosenbaum, for instance, the guy who was a convicted pedophile. If you did what they did to Kyle Rittenhouse, where they damn near broke his Fifth Amendment right to self-incrimination,
Mm.
where they essentially almost immediately caused a mistrial. If you had done that, the way he phrased it was, if you question someone's Fifth Amendment right, even if it's a pedophile, even if there's video of said pedophile doing his pedophilic act, you cannot break your Fifth Amendment right.
Yeah.
As a state prosecutor, you cannot question his right to remain silent.
Right.
That trial should be mistrialed, even if there's video of Rosenbaum molesting a child. If you question his Fifth Amendment right enough to cause a mistrial, it should be mistrialed, and he
Yes.
would go free. And that's awful to say, but the state needs to have such a high burden because of how much power the state has.
Yes.
And I
I
hated
mean,
that. Like, I was like,
yeah.
no, fuck that. The guy's a pedophile. All pedophiles need to burn and die. And then I thought about it a little bit more and I was like, fuck, he's right. It's very unfortunate that you are innocent until proven guilty. Let me rephrase that. That's not the unfortunate part.
No.
But it's
No.
unfortunate when state prosecutors get so lazy and they start breaking these fundamental laws that you have an inalienable right to the point where, if, let's say that Kyle Rittenhouse case happened and it was someone who uh actually let's just use this as an example. The guy who ran into all the people in
Waukesha.
Waukesha, not Wausau,
Mhm.
sorry,
Yeah. Yeah.
Waukesha. If they break any of his trial rights, let's say the prosecutor questions him about his um, silence to the police, he should be set free.
Yeah.
If the state breaks any of those laws, even though there's clear and definitive evidence of this man running people over, you are innocent until proven guilty. and you have inalienable rights that should not be questioned. Even if you're a pedophile, and even if you're a communist, and even if you're a black supremacist like that guy in Waukesha,
Yeah.
whatever one it was. There's too many stupid names here in Wisconsin.
Yeah. And for all the famous people out there, if you ever listen to this podcast, I'm going to say fuck you for pushing the Communist Manifesto on people. I highly doubt you would enjoy communism if it actually happened here.
Did you see Seth Rogen's tweet? Oh my god, this fucking Seth Rogen. I didn't mind him when he first started acting.
Yeah, when he was a fat idiot stoner. Yeah.
Well, I didn't necessarily like the stoner part because I didn't like. I watched what movie was it? Like, oh god. So I never watched. He was in Pineapple Express, right?
Yeah.
I never watched Pineapple Express.
Mm,
So maybe not when he first started acting because I think that's one of his more like first movies. I don't remember.
right.
Anyways, I just hate him so much. So Casey Neistat is a YouTuber, content guy, whatever. His car was robbed out in LA or Hollywood, whenever the fuck they live.
Yeah.
And he tweeted about it saying, "Oh, my car was broken into. This sucks, but I called the cops and thankfully the cops were able to get my stuff back. That's pretty cool." And Seth Rogen chimes in and goes, "Bro, my car's been broken into like 15 times. There's no reason to call the cops. I don't consider my car an extension of me. And to call the cops is pretty lame. And then to thank them for it after they get you your stuff back is even lamer. And hey, they left me a cool knife last time they broke into my car. So it's totally okay to have your car robbed 17 times because your car isn't an extension of yourself. And I'm a dumb stoner hippie liberal. I hate him. I hate him so much."
I hope someone
And I
hits
guess the
him with a
reason for
car.
all this anger, have you seen the movie, this Sausage Party movie?
Oh, I hated that movie.
Yeah. So I had never seen it because it looked dumb to me. And then I was on vacation visiting my friend who shall remain nameless, and my other friend who I damn near want to dox, give out his address, his social security number, and
Don't do
everything
it.
else
Don't
for
do it.
fucking
No.
subjecting me to the fucking last 3 minutes of that movie where the vegetables all just fuck each other.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very strange.
I sat there. I could have gone the rest of my life without seeing that.
Hollywood is the worst place on the planet. Hollywood is
Cancer.
as it's a cancer. It's a cancer and it just spreads. Think about everybody who goes, they go, and I use Hollywood as like Hollywood, they produce all of it, right? So
Yep.
all the propaganda comes out of Hollywood, everything, and it's oh, I hate it. I don't watch anything new. And when I do watch something new, it's not because of people are in it. I'll tell you that.
Yep.
I could boycott movies and all that shit. I'll listen to a goddamn book,
Yeah.
you know? I'll
Yep.
read a book.
Oh, what
Mm.
the fuck, America?
What the fuck, America?
That shall be the end of the show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.
Later.